The observation deck of Station Kareth 9 hummed with the low thrum of life support systems, but Sirath barely noticed. His 4 eyes were locked on the viewing screen. All 4 pupils dilated in what his species would recognize as profound confusion. For the last 3 hours, he had stood motionless, watching the human in the containment habitat below. Joran Vale sat with his back against the artificial rock formation, completely still except for the gentle rise and fall of his chest. And sleeping on that chest, curled in a pile of striped fur and retracted claws, were 3 Korthax cubs. Sirath's dorsal plates flexed involuntarily, a stress response his people had evolved over millions of years. The Korthax were apex predators from a death world, with gravity 30% higher than Earth's. Their adults stood 3 meters tall, could bite through reinforced steel, and had reflexes fast enough to snatch flying prey mid-air. The Galactic Council had classified them as Class 7 aggressive fauna, which meant avoid at all costs, use lethal force if necessary, do not attempt contact. Yet there lay Joran Vale, a human security contractor, with 3 of their cubs using him as a bed. "This is madness," Sirath whispered in his native tongue, his translator implant rendering it into standard. He adjusted the screen's angle, zooming in on the human's face. Vale's eyes were closed, his expression peaceful. One of his hands rested gently on the largest cub's back, fingers buried in the thick fur. The cubs had been seized from a smuggling vessel 3 days ago. Their mother was dead, killed by the smugglers when she'd fought back during capture. Standard protocol demanded they be euthanized. Orphaned, predator cubs from Class 7 species were considered too dangerous and too expensive to rehabilitate. The paperwork had been filed. The execution was scheduled for tomorrow morning. Then Joran Vale had walked into the holding area. Sirath had watched it all through the security feeds, initially responding to an alarm he thought indicated a containment breach. Instead, he'd found the human inside the habitat, the door properly sealed behind him. The cubs had been huddled in the far corner, malnourished and terrified, their warning growls echoing off the walls. Vale had simply sat down on the floor, cross-legged, about 5 meters away from them. And then he'd done nothing. For 47 minutes, he'd sat in silence while the cubs watched him with their 6 eyes, 3 on each side of their triangular skulls, evolved to give them complete spherical vision to track prey and avoid becoming prey themselves. Eventually, the smallest cub had crept forward. Its siblings had hissed warnings, but hunger and curiosity had won out. Vale had slowly, deliberately, opened his supply pack and removed a ration bar. Not the protein paste the cubs had been refusing to eat, but his own food, human food, high in fats and proteins that his species had once needed to fuel their oversized brains. He'd broken off a piece and extended it, his arm fully outstretched, his body language submissive. The cub had snatched it and retreated, devouring the morsel in seconds. Then, it had returned for more. Within 2 hours, all 3 cubs were eating from his hands. Within 4, they were climbing on him, their natural playfulness overcoming their trauma. By hour 6, they were asleep on his chest. That had been 3 hours ago. Sirath heard the door hiss open behind him. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Station Commander Velis moved with a distinctive clicking gait, her chitinous legs striking the floor in a rhythm unique to her subspecies. "You're still here," Velis observed, moving to stand beside him. "Commander, I cannot look away," Sirath admitted. "This human is exhibiting behavior that defies all logical threat assessment protocols. Those are Korthax cubs." "I'm aware." Velis's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. They stood in silence, watching. One of the cubs, the smallest one, stirred, stretching its 6 legs and extending claws that could disembowel an adult Threxian. The claws pressed against Vale's chest. The human didn't even flinch. The cub retracted its claws and settled back down. "He knows," Sirath said suddenly. "Look at his positioning. His left arm is free. His right hand is near his sidearm. I can see the grip. He's not defenseless. He's not foolish. He's calculated this. Humans are predators too." Velis said quietly. We forget that sometimes. They seem so soft, so diplomatic. But they evolved on a death world of their own, not as harsh as Korthax Prime, perhaps. But Earth culled the weak from their species for millions of years. But this, Sirath gestured at the screen, this is not predation. This is caregiving behavior. For another species' offspring, for a species that could easily kill him. Have you read the human ethnographic databases? Velis asked. Some of them. They have a concept called adoption, and another called pets. For thousands of years, they took the cubs of other predators, wolves, great cats, bears, and raised them. They domesticated wolves into hundreds of variants they call dogs. They keep predatory felines in their homes for companionship. There are documented cases of humans forming bonds with wild predators that should, by all logic, kill them. Sarath's plates flexed again. But why? Because humans, Velis said, her voice carrying something that might have been admiration or might have been fear, seem to have an instinct to protect young creatures. Even young creatures that might grow up to be threats. They look at these cubs and see, not danger, not predators, they see children. On the screen, Joran Vale's eyes opened. Slowly, carefully, he looked down at the sleeping cubs on his chest. A smile crossed his face, a genuine expression of warmth that Sirath had learned to recognize during his years working with humans. Vale's free hand gently stroked the largest cub's head, and the creature made a rumbling purr that Sirath had never heard from a Korthax before. Commander, Sirath said, the execution order is being cancelled, Velis interrupted. I've contacted the Korthax homeworld government. They're sending a delegation to retrieve the cubs. They'll be rehabilitated and released into protected reserves. She paused. They asked how we managed to keep the cubs stable and healthy during transport. I sent them these recordings. The delegation specifically requested that Joran Vale accompany the cubs on their journey home. Sirath's pupils dilated further. They want the human to come to their death world? They said any species that produces individuals like him is worthy of deeper alliance. Velis's mandibles formed what might have been a smile. Vale has already accepted. He's requested a 6-month leave of absence. On the screen, the smallest cub had woken up. It crawled up Vale's chest until they were face-to-face, triangular skull, inches from the human's vulnerable throat. For a moment, Sirath's hand moved instinctively toward the emergency containment controls. Then the cub licked Vale's face with a tongue designed to strip meat from bone, and the human laughed a sound of pure joy. Humans, Sirath said, his voice filled with wonder and resignation, are absolutely terrifying. Yes, Commander Velis agreed. But I'm very glad they're on our side.